I think education has a massive role to play. And I think it's because education is the means of addressing some of the most fundamental questions of our time.
When you think about civic identity, when you think about the development of a human being, you have to think of it in the following way. How do we provide the kinds of foundational education that young people need to have for lifelong learning? An orientation who want to learn as long as they live. So it's not just about primary education, it's about primary, secondary, tertiary. It's about lifelong learning, that even when you're 70 years of age, that you continue to strive to continue to learn about the world.
Every single person in the world should have the access to education and adopted as a long life learning experience and enjoy it.
Today, Ukraine fights for global values. We have numerous challenges, but we will continue all of our reforms, even in this time of war. At the Education World Forum, we have all been emboldened by the idea of building forward together. Stronger, bolder, better. In Ukraine, we will do all this. Next year, I hope to be speaking about our success in rebuilding Ukraine's education through our own efforts and the generous help of our international friends.
The role of the teacher and the presence in the classroom, the social contact is a key issue for the learning process. We cannot, of course, use technology, but technology by itself will not change the quality and reduce inequality of our education if we do not invest and recognize the role of the teachers in our educational systems.
You have teachers going back to their school leaders saying, during this pandemic I understood the most important thing is not to be a great instructor, but to become a good coach, a good mentor, a good evaluator, a good, even social worker, psychologist. So those roles are changing, and that's why the classroom needs to change. We need to reconfigure the spaces, the people, the time, the technology, and the relationships in new ways. That's what really what's the disappearing classroom is about. It's not about, that education will disappear or that interaction between learners and the learner and the educator, but it's that their relationship will change.
Learning and teaching happens in a multimodal way right now. Learning and teaching happens through different channels. We just have to understand how those channels work, what they are good for, and how we can harness the power of those channels in favor of better learning and more equity in our schools and educational systems.
So I really hope that we will develop our digital education platforms as resilient responses to prevent future disruptions, but of course that the classroom and the school remain the core of our education program.
Nicaragua tiene un modelo social que está centrado en la familia, en la fe, en la esperanza, participación efectiva de padres de familia, de comunidad, docentes y estudiantes, y hacemos una familia unida para buscar la paz.
The level of absolute dependence, the issue of extreme poverty, the inability to make men relevant to themselves and to society is accomplished only through education. I generally look at education being a light. As much as there is much light in the world, yet there is much darkness. Except we see the darkness of being a threat to the light, it's easy to forget the threat of that darkness. And for the whole world to be illuminated bright, the light has to expand and cover the globe. And this is what education really is.
I believe we are having the best time to be a teacher because it's kind of a revolution nowadays. The COVID gave us the opportunity to see that we are having this time where we have to think in another way. So we are really proud of our teachers, and I think this is the time where people can think of becoming a teacher. It's the best place where we can be in the education world because we are touching the lives of our citizens worldwide.
But the downside of it, is that education is not just a pedagogical knowledge exchange process. It's a social process as well. To have students together, playing together, engaging, visiting each other, physically and so on, is very important in the formation of young people.
In the future, you get dual education, blended education at a certain percentage, and that's okay as long as you have the kids working together because they learn together and they need to be together. There's impossible to disappear classrooms because education is a social activity and you need to have kids learn together. And if you do think about disappearing classrooms, that will lead to mental issues, mental problems. Isolation can worsen things.
They should not replace classrooms because classrooms are more than learning and teaching places, but they're also social places for children. There are centers where children are cared for. That's where children form partnerships or they form friendships. And that's the place where they really grow up with their peers.
The way forward, stems from the fact that education is at the heart of our opportunities. Our life choices, by and large, will gravitate around the educational investments that we make and the educational exposure that we give our people.
I think curiosity is a central part of our education. Not only maybe education, but also our experience in the world. So curiosity stimulates all of us to learn something, to live something, to experience something. So if you take actually curiosity from the education, then probably it will be empty, right?
The most important thing is getting good teachers, trained teachers, teachers who will have social and financial security so that they can totally devote themselves to their job.
We are also facing this problem in Pakistan, and we have made a plan to give the teachers incentives so they should opt this profession, and we will do this, and I think situation in Pakistan will improve definitely.
Education reform is good, especially for the medium income earners and the low-level income earners. Education needs to be given a priority so that we improve the lives of our citizens in any country around the world, so that we make the society and the population become competitive in the changing environment.
For any society to develop
And to develop in the right way, the citizens need to be educated to tackle a lot of societal issues, developmental issues. With an educated society, we'll be able to achieve the values, the norms, and to ensure that the sector, not just the education sector, the society, attains the developmental strides in all ways.
Distance education is the answer. But can distance education also answer all the costs that are needed to bring in the technology that you need to provide education?
We learned a lot about the use of technology. We know that it is useful, but it is not the panacea. It is not the solution. Technology is not something that substitutes direct in personal contact and personal teaching and face-to-face teaching and learning. And nevertheless, it is useful for example, reaching teachers. Technology can be used for supporting teachers and giving the materials and making groups and discussion, etc. And also technology can be used for reaching students. And this is something that has been proven to be very, very useful, to be able to use technology for when students are not going to school, to be able to reach them. So we have to support teachers with materials and with very structured pedagogies that they can follow and where they can merge with their own skills.
Curiosity probably is at the heart of education because that's how we discover things. And as we grow up, you have to continue to discover your environment, social relations, and so on. And for education system, it needs to cultivate curiosity to kids and to the youth so that they can take up the challenges and try to push frontiers of knowledge forward. And I think it's completely important. And we have to try as much as possible to avoid a situation where we just want to straitjacket our kids and youth through education system. We just need to make them a little bit more brave, to ask questions, to try to explore, to be curious about new things and experience and so on.
Ya de hecho, antes de llegar la pandemia, teníamos impactos negativos, lo que quiere decir que la pandemia ahondó esas dificultades, esas deficiencias en la educación.
La educación es realmente la base, el motor para cambiar la sociedad, para conseguir un mundo más pacífico, con ciudadanos con valores democráticos y que apuesten por el diálogo. Y en estos momentos es más importante que nunca. La educación es el centro del mundo, es el motor para que gire correctamente el mundo.
Bueno, para nosotros una buena educación no solo incluye los conocimientos y las habilidades que puedan desarrollar los estudiantes, incluye la formación de valores, convicciones, comportamientos, que sean hombres de bien en la sociedad.
Well, I think the most current issue is that somehow to address the needs of the future generation in terms of such an uncertain world, that it gets harder and harder to forecast what's going to happen, and I think that mankind is getting more challenged in terms of getting ready what type of skills, what type of behavior, what types of attitude can lead for more sustainable or more peaceful world. And I think it's as educators preparing the future generation for this type of uncertain future is the main challenge.